My last role before I joined Everstone was as the CEO for the Walt Disney company, and I ran the business and grew it exponentially. In fact, almost $300 million plus dollars. When it's a very senior woman like me, who are very few in the industry, there is a lot of, I think, unconscious bias wherein it's difficult for male counterparts to accept. I remember when I was going to join Everstone, the very senior, industry senior, she's extremely well known, and she was in private equity for 2 years.
Okay.
She actually told me, don't join.
Oh, why?
She said, they will never respect you. They will never treat you as an equal.
Thanks, Roshni, for joining us today, and really pleasure to have you here. I've read so much about you and your stories, so would want to hear from you as to, you were into brand building and consumer businesses. How did investing happen for you? And usually it's like an unseen path for somebody who's done a brand building throughout their career, and then suddenly getting into investing can be daunting sometimes. So how is it for you? Before we get into your childhood, I would love to know about what the present is.
Yeah, sure. So my last role before I joined Everstone was as the CEO for the Walt Disney company, where I set up the business here. So it was not just brand, but it was a full P&L role. And I ran the business and grew it exponentially. In fact, almost $300 million plus dollars by the time I moved from Disney. This was I spent around 9 years with the Walt Disney company. It was based in Bombay, in fact, for a significant part of the time. I think I really came into PE by chance more than anything else. I had moved to Jakarta along with my husband, so that was why I had to quit Disney and move.
Was it a difficult decision?
It was a very difficult decision because I was doing very well.
You were the CEO.
I was very happy, very well settled with a great global brand. I mean, it's a brand that people
aspire for.
Aspire. It's creates so many dreams.
Correct.
It's such a magical one, and then to leave it and suddenly walk away was extremely challenging. But I had to do it because I had kids in school at that point in time, and I could not stay here. And Jakarta is just too far away.
Correct.
So we moved, and I was wondering what next to do. Wasn't too.
So you moved with uncertainty, without any job in hand.
Completely uncertain, no job in hand, just moved. And I said, okay, I will start speaking to people and then see where this journey takes me.
But did the leadership team at Walt Disney convince you to just stay and
no? So at that, I had almost overgrown my job here.
Okay.
Because the next role for me would have been in their corporate headquarters in LA.
Okay.
Which was not possible. If I was a man, I would have probably upped the family and moved. And that's where I think, as women, we have to, this is one of the challenges. Of course, today I see there are a lot of men who are very happy to follow their wives, and it's really wonderful to see that happening. But in my case, I just decided to do this because it was a great role for my husband to be the CEO of Unilever there, which is the second largest in the stock market. It's a massive company. Was I think something he wanted to be a part of, and I didn't want to then quash his dreams. So we moved, and 3-4 months I started talking to a few people. There was a global consulting firm which was talking to me. There was another very large global software firm which was also talking to me. I can't name them because I don't think it's right to name. And both of them were talking, and I had almost started working with this global consulting firm and kind of signed up with them, or was signing up in fact, when I got a call from Everstone, which is based in Singapore, and one of my today colleagues actually got onto a call, and he started talking to me and just wanted to hear my story. And a week later, he called again and said, would you like to come in and meet with our founders, because they're based in Singapore. We'll fly you in and fly you out, and you know, they'd love to catch up with you and meet you. So that's how I went in. And then I met with the founders at Everstone. So I'm not an investing partner. I am what's called as an operating partner. So there's a big difference between the two. I don't go out and source the deals. But on the other hand, if there are relevant, you know, once we actually invest or are in the process of investing,
you grow the brand.
Then I start working with the team and do specific areas of work and value creation levers that I lead. One of them is in human capital, people and transformation of companies really through talent. The other one is brand transformation, which is also very important for many of our you know, investments that we make, because they are founder led, and then from founder led you have to really pivot them to becoming global brands or global companies. So that's the second part. And the third that I really work a lot on is impact and ESG, and specifically look at metrics and measurements of how we intentionally improve the ESG metrics in each of the investments that we do. So those are three things that I work on, and any other areas of work that needs to be done in some of our companies that we invest in, I actually get in and do. So that's pretty much my job.
Got it. So now that we are on Everstone, let me just ask you that when you joined, you all had also invested in Modern Foods.
That's right.
And you're working actively on building that brand.
Correct.
So just tell me, for the benefit of the audience also, as to what the process looks like as an operating partner. What all do you do being on the company's board?
Yeah, sure. See, we at Everstone, we invest only when we are able to take control or we do 100% buyout or a carve out. So it gives us, I think, as a firm, greater ability to really shape the future of the investments that we have made and to shape the form and the fashion of the company. Therefore, when you're on the operating side, there's a lot more that can be done and is done, because in a fashion, the company belongs to us, either majority or otherwise. So in the case of Modern, it was almost everything from ground up. There was no management in place, so that was the first thing we had to put in place. There's really no CXO layer. There was no CEO. So that entire layer had to be brought in.
But how did the company grow till that level?
It was actually a division within HUL. So there was nothing called management layer independently. There were 6 independent factories which had their factory heads. And then there was just someone from HUL who was kind of reviewing it once in a quarter. So when we took 6 independent plants and we had to convert and make it into one company. Right? So we had to create a company. We did that. So brought in people. Then the brand itself had to be completely rehauled. It was a great brand with a great equity, but if you looked at it, there was nothing that unified it across the country. The brand looked completely different. It had been pretty much, I think, you know, every plant had decided he wanted to use some color. So literally every packaging was looking different. There were 600, 700 SKUs across the country, which did not really match. There was no, you know, what we call as the star products. So every plant had its own set. So the entire product architecture had to be reformed. That was the other one. Then the route to market. One of the reasons why we acquired this was primarily because we saw the opportunity to expand distribution. And to be able to focus, bring on board larger distributors on a you know, as a process, and then to be able to drive more sales into market and create greater share. So that was the other piece that we worked on. Then procurement. I mean, you look at it, we literally went into every aspect of running the business and worked over the next 5 years to make those changes. We made some mistakes as well. For example, we got into FMCG products, which takes a much longer time in order to really build scale and bring, let's say, and be profitable, especially when you're setting into place a completely new distribution system, new ways of brand build, etc. It's a lot of investment. as a private equity firm, we don't have that kind of time and runway. So that was a mistake that we made, which we should not have gotten into. So it's not that everything went successfully, mistakes were made along the way. But at some stage we realized, so we kind of, pulled it all back in and went back to what was the tried and tested proper distribution.
Was it difficult for you to pivot then after launching into something and then coming back?
Once we took a decision, we just moved very fast. And I think it was the right decision to take. Because otherwise we were going down a path which may not have added any value back at exit as well. And would have needed much more investment even for it to turn around.
Got it. But what was the thought when you decided to even enter into the FMCG space?
Well, the thought was that we would be able to create two different distribution systems. So bread as a distribution system is a lot more daily distribution. It's totally different. And creating what we call as long shelf life products, and bread has like a 24 to 48 hour shelf life. Creating long shelf life products actually makes the brand a lot more valuable, number one. So the brand value goes up. Secondly, at the time of exit, normally a B2C brand or a company would always have a multiple that's much larger than a B2B.
Correct.
So there were two reasons why we went in. We, I think, overestimated our ability to create a massive FMCG brand within a very short period of time.
Got it.
That was a good learning.
Yeah, you learn from such incidences only. But like VC firms have a very lean team, so did you also have a short number of people working on this with you?
Yeah, so we have extremely lean teams. Within the PE firm, we are very small as a set of full-time employees. But what we do, as in other firms, is we bring on board consultants. We bring on board other experts who pretty much work as part of our team through specific processes that we need to drive. So it could be, let's say, a 3-month intervention on centralizing procurement. It could be work around building a completely new factory. It could be around, let's say, a route to market, a new route to market. It could be around even brand transformation, right? All of this we bring on board partners who support us, help us.
Okay, understood. And in terms of hiring for your team, what kind of pedigree do you look at?
We hire very few people. And that is something that you should, our own internal team, we bring in at the analyst and associate level. Normally they're MBA at least. They should have been ideally in investment banking for a couple of years or in consulting at the base minimum.
Unlike your career trajectory.
Unlike mine. I know. That's what I keep saying. I'm an operating partner who's come in very differently. But on the investment side, that's the way they look at it.
Okay. But if somebody has to become an operating partner, then they can't be a part of the firm early on and grow that path.
You can. So it depends very much on sector specific, let's say, experience. Highly possible that in the future we can have people who come in and decide to move from investment to operations. But I always say that in a private equity firm, investments is a sexy business when they're doing deals and they hang, discussing. Operations is the unsexy part of the business. So there are very few who will put their hands up and say, now I want to do operations.
But tell me that, were there any assumptions made when you were making your career switch into the private equity ecosystem as a whole? Were there people who were thinking that how can somebody from a non-investing background even become a part of a private equity ecosystem? Did people understand the part of operations?
Yeah, I think at that point in time, Everstone has been fairly, I think, forward in having or bringing on board people with experience at different levels, specifically people who've been either in the corporate world or have a sectoral experience. So it was not completely foreign within Everstone. A lot of the other firms have now started doing that. So actually,
Understood.
I think we were way ahead of the pack.
But when it comes to work also, how much work is enough for you to get promoted in a system like this?
So I've reached a stage where there's no, so it's very hard. It's a very flat organization.
Yeah.
So the MD level is pretty much at the highest level.
Correct.
Right, but for the associates, analysts, VP, I think it's just about how well they perform. There is nothing called, so we have on board one of my colleagues who's an MD today, who joined the firm 14 years ago as an analyst.
Okay.
Well, he's just very smart. He just made it.
Yeah.
That's it. So, and there are people who climb all the way up to an MD level very, very fast.
Yeah, you said that.
And is he 40 today? Maybe not even.
No.
40. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's possible.
Absolutely.
But you also said that there are many type A personalities and you have to be a bit aggressive apart from what you otherwise see in marketing related fields. So define this more. What kind of skill sets do you really need to make yourself stand out?
Work hard. I think sometimes I see that there is a little bit of showmanship, which all investment bankers have, looking at them and saying that's the way they are. There's a little bit of chest beating that happens. A lot of I know more than you. I think that pretty much is, and there's a lot more about how well you can narrate a story versus and how well you can talk and get away with things.
Yeah.
So a little bit of that.
Yeah. Got it.
But I mean, they have. I'm not saying that they don't have capabilities. They're all smart guys.
Well, these are the top ups.
Yeah.
So going backwards, you have worked at different places before Everstone and moved different cities. So tell me about how it all started. You of course did your career in finance, starting off with economics. Yeah. So tell me what made you choose that profession in the first place.
No, after ECO I went and did my MBA, and at that point in time there were two choices I had. One was to get into an investment bank because Citi was recruiting.
Yeah.
And the other one was to get into brand and marketing. I was just very, very, I think, enthralled by the whole marketing and sales piece. So I moved into that. So I got an opportunity to kind of work elsewhere, and I just said, okay, let me try finance.
Yeah.
I worked with Prudential for a short period, and then realized that, and then Mattel came in, and they kind of recruited me. They wanted someone to head marketing, and that was a very exciting job because it was toys.
Yeah.
It was a full marketing head role for the country. So I took it. I worked with them, and then I think that was the first move my husband had out of Bombay. He moved to another city, Chennai. I had to leave Mattel. So there were two times in life that I had to leave companies I loved.
Well, what really made you compromise so much?
I had no choice at that time, right? I could not sit in Bombay with a baby in my hands and my husband going. And I think women do it all the time. Or now a few men do it, as I said, but mostly women end up doing it.
But you never had any regrets or doubts?
Well, of course, all of us have our regrets and doubts. But sometimes we make choices because at the end of the day, it's also family first. Right? That's the way I look at life. I met Arun Jain, who's a founder of Polaris, at one social event, and we were talking, and he said, "What are you doing?" So we were just conversing, and he said, "I've got something very interesting. Would you like to come in and try it out?" We actually want someone with the sales and marketing experience and background who's coming in from not the technology industry, because everyone in the technology industry is very much a software coder. We want someone who can think out of the box. So why don't you come? And that's how I joined.
Since you've been into brand building and product launches, what are some of the key essentials that are really required to put your product out in different kind of markets and geographies?
I think very dependent on every sector.
How was it in Polaris?
Polaris was very different. It was a B2B product, and therefore you had to actually do a very different way of building the what I would call as your company brand. Who are you? What does it really stand for? You have to look at what is competition, and then see how do you really position what you're presenting in line with the competition. What do you stand for? Why should consumers or customers really look at you? It's a combination of pricing, it's a combination of the way the product works, very important. How quickly can it be implemented? How robust is it? What's the brand that stands behind it? Is that well known? So it's a very different set of marketing skills.
And was it difficult for you to then get into consumer business at Walt Disney?
No, it wasn't. I was from the consumer business.
Yeah. And what was your journey there like when you started, and then when you left? What was the different things you were doing in your first year versus in your 9th year?
I think in the first year I really had to set the team up and plan the business. And in terms of where are we today and what do we really want to take it to. And after that, it was about really building the business over the next 8 to 9 years.
Got it. And you never had a boring or a dull moment ever?
No, never.
And I remember your first job was at Taj as the EA to the CEO. So what kind of experience did you gather there?
That was a very short period of around 6 to 8 months.
But still, it was the first one.
Yeah, it was very interesting because I think there I learned, because we were doing a lot of M&A at that point in time. So I learned a lot about the deal structuring, what was happening, buying this hotel. And I was working, I think, from till 1 o'clock every night. So it was very tough.
But you would start at 1 p.m. also, no?
Start at 1 p.m.
Why
But then before that I would be working. No, I would come in at 9, work. 1 p.m. is when the CEO would come in, and then the work would start for the next 12 hours.
My God, so the entire day got caught up into that. And then what made you leave it?
Exactly because of that.
Got it. And then you started from ground up, right? Being a sales officer at Lakme. So did you see yourself doing that when you were studying from IIM, having done economics?
Actually, if you don't do that, you never know how to sell and how to market, right? And therefore, I took that as a very as one of the most interesting experiences I've had. Because when you sit on the back of a sales officer's scooter or motorcycle and you're going from store to store, and you are responsible for actually ensuring that the team that you work with delivers, and more importantly, you're motivating them to do it. You have to, and you understand what you really understand what customers want and consumers want when you stand and watch in retail stores. To me, I loved it. I absolutely loved it.
And then what made you not leave it for 7 years?
Because I love the job.
And you would have continued there had it not been for the transfer?
Absolutely.
Wow. Today we would see you being the CEO of HUL maybe.
Who knows? Who knows?
Yeah. But coming on the softer skills side, who have been your mentors in 2 decades of your career? More than that, actually.
So I think at every stage there have been interesting people that have been my bosses who I have learned from.
If you could just
have there been actual mentors and guides? I don't think so, but I've learned a lot from them. So in a way, by watching them, I have learned, and hence I think they have been quasi mentors. That's the way I look at it. I've met some very smart guys along the way, and I've met some really bad people along the way. And between the two, I think I have seen how they have performed, what to do and what not to do. So I've kind of watched and learned. But watched and learned also from colleagues, from people who are like you, much younger, who come in with such different skill sets. So I learn. So each one, I look at everyone as a mentor.
That's the way you get inspired every day.
Absolutely.
But tell me, if you could, from each company, what was that one quality you acquired from your leaders and you still have it within you?
I think it's different stuff. One was really to look at the big picture, because one of my bosses really used to look at the big picture. He would come very straight to the point,
okay,
and not really beat around the bush. He was a terror when it came to dealing, when the agencies came in or anyone came in, because they would start with this whole narrative and he would say, okay, get to the point. So he had that ability to see through and come to a conclusion very quickly.
Okay.
Which was very helpful for me, because at Disney, as I built the team, as we built the business, and it was so diverse, it was very important to kind of cut through the clutter and come to the point, which was one. The second, I had another boss who was extremely hardworking and very sharp. And I learned a lot from him in terms of just the power of hard work.
Okay.
So different people.
But your dad has been the biggest inspiration for you in life?
Yes.
And what makes you look up to him?
I think because he never treated me as different from my brother. He always said that I was, he always believed in me. It's as simple as that.
Right.
And for him, I was as equal, if not more equal than my brother.
But did the world at any point in time treat you differently than your male counterpart? Has that unconscious gender bias ever?
A lot of times, Radhika. In fact, it is.
If you could cite some incidences.
Even today at private equity, there are lots of unconscious biases, and I'm in fact part of an organization in Singapore called SVCA, which is like the IVCA here, where we have set up a committee for DEI, and I co-chair that committee. So especially in the private equity industry and in the venture capital industry, there is a lot of unconscious and conscious gender bias. Not only unconscious, but also conscious gender bias. There are only 12% of firms in this entire industry in Asia which are more gender balanced, as we call it, which means that it's primarily male. There is always, as a woman, at the junior levels, I don't think there is so much of a challenge women face, because they're more or less equal, they're doing all the work. So actually they're treated fairly okay. But when it's a very senior woman like me, who are very few in the industry, there is a lot of, I think, unconscious bias wherein it's difficult for male counterparts to accept. So for example, if let's say a male counterpart raised a question, it would be seen as par for the course in a meeting. If a senior woman raises the same question or similar,
they'll doubt your.
It will be seen as disrupting, or why is she asking that question? I'm thinking of it differently. So what's the purpose? And then there's a lot of, back talking, saying, oh, she's, she doesn't understand this, and she asks strange questions, stuff like that, which is all, to me, conscious and unconscious gender bias. The unwillingness to accept and to listen to a question from someone different, saying they may have a point of view, let's hear it out. And that's very, very male versus female. And there are multiple occasions like that.
But that's for the private equity field, where you anyways have all type A's. Has it been ever so with you in any of the other companies?
At Disney, never. At Disney, I think there was one of the companies where diversity was taken, diversity, equity, inclusion was actually completely followed without even thinking. There was no difference between a man and a woman, whether whether there were men who preferred same sex, women who preferred same sex, nothing. There was no differentiation. Everyone was given, everyone is equal. It was, I think, one of the best places I worked in where there was no bias at all. No bias at all. No bias, very little bias towards race. There was no bias towards, and even that they were coming out, they wanted to actively ensure that even people of color at all stages, whether it was black, brown, whatever, were all given the same opportunity. Women there was no difference between a man and a woman at all.
But why do you think there is so much of it in especially the investing ecosystem?
I think it comes from investment banking ecosystem, where it's a very male world and it's a very much male show-off world.
Yeah.
And therefore it's very difficult for them to accept a woman unless she is the junior and they've seen them, seen the woman. So some women who have, and I hope that women who are starting today, therefore if they continue to stay, will find a much equal playing field, as opposed to someone like me who has come in from a completely different place.
Yeah. But I was talking to other investors also, and they told me the exact same thing, that at the junior level you see a lot of participation and excitement, but it drops down gradually as you move up the ladder and you yourself leave the ecosystem because people don't respect your views, or you can't find a place for yourself.
Absolutely. So it takes a very tough skin to stay. You have to be strong enough to manage it. Because I remember when I was going to join Everstone, the very senior industry senior, she's extremely well known, and she was in private equity for 2 years.
Okay.
She actually told me, don't join.
Oh, why?
She said, they will never respect you. They will never treat you as an equal. She said, she had joined a private equity firm, a global firm, for 2 years, and she said I didn't like it at all. She said it is just a very male world.
My God.
I told her, okay, let me take a punt, join, and then see what happens. So I think I survived.
Yeah. But you see that happening at your level also.
Yeah. She had also joined at a senior level.
My God. But I think
that's where I think the challenges are, to bring in very senior women and then to get them to give them the same space as men get is still a big question mark.
Right. Do you see any women-led private equity firms
which are
started by them?
Of course, tons, and I'm so impressed. From Renuka Ramnath at Multiples to there is Shivani Basin at who's running the India partners, to Vani Kola. There's a whole bunch of them. And I'm very happy to see that.
And I think if there are women like that on top, then we can have a change.
Absolutely. And similarly in Southeast Asia, there are lots of venture capital firms that have women that have come and become partners. Which is so good to see it.
Yeah, that's nice. So we enter the last segment of the rapid fire round, and I have 3 quick questions for you as to what would have been an alternative career option for you.
If not PE. I would have been I think an operator, which means a CEO of another company.
Okay, got it. And what's your one of the most favorite childhood memories?
Lots of them. When my dad taught me cycling.
Okay.
Was one. Where I would eat a ton of. I have a terrible sweet tooth, and I remember during Diwali time when the sweets would come home, I would take a full box and sit down in a corner and finish it up. To just having fun.
And what was the last thing that you did for the first time in your life?
Last thing I did for the first time in my life. Shit, that's not a rapid fire. That takes a long time. While talking to you.
I hope it happens many times now. That's a very good answer, actually, very different one. But on that note, we come to the end, and I thank you so much for answering all my questions so patiently, and it was lovely to speak to you.
Likewise.